Good morning, chaps. Welcome to Tollesbury, which is a harbour town in Essex, continuing on from my new project that I decided to embark on about 6 days ago. If you watched last week's video, you will know what I'm talking about. My plan for the next year or so is to check out these coastline towns in Essex, go on some morning walks, try and chase that light, as they say. I should have done this sooner. I'm absolutely buzzing about checking out places like these, little harbour villages and towns, and enjoying the sunrise, and the fact that I had to get up at about 5:45 to enjoy the light this morning. So, doable. I can't imagine getting up earlier than that, but you know, it is what it is. So, I've never been here before. I didn't realise it would be so boaty. But look at this beautiful reflection behind me. Since I mentioned in last week's video that I'm going to embark on this new photo project, and I mentioned it in last week's Focal Point newsletter, the recommendations from you guys has been amazing, and Tollesbury Harbour and Tollesbury Town was one of the recommendations I had, as well as checking out Mersea Island, which is that way, I think, West Mersea and East Mersea, but I need to check the tide times. And something else I thought as well is I'm pleased I'm doing this now, because in 20 years' time, if my lifestyle's different or if my day-to-day life's different and I can't take advantage of being, you know, these places are on my doorstep, 30, 45 minutes away, an hour away tops, I can take advantage of these sunrises and these morning walks. And yeah, it's just a realisation. It's like, why didn't I do this sooner? Instead of going inland further and going to London, which is obviously one of the best places in the world for photography, I can just head out in the mornings, any morning really, and start shooting these sunrises, so I'm excited for it. 4 gear this morning, I am using the Leica M11 with the 35mm. I had some questions about Hasselblad from last week's video, people asking me if I'm strictly going to use that for this project, but I don't see the reason to limit myself in that way, so I will just pick up whatever camera I decide to pick up that morning or the night before. I was using a 30, or it's 38 on the Hasselblad, which is 30 full frame, and it was nice and wide, but I just wanted something a little bit tighter, because when shooting stuff like this, there's a little bit of private property, and like, you can't, you know, not everywhere is accessible, so maybe having just that extra step forward at 35mm would be handy. But I'm not fully decided or sold on what I'm doing yet in terms of full scope of photographs needed for this project. So I'll just play around with a few different focal lengths and see what happens. And I can see someone on that boat in the distance. I would love to get over there and take pictures of them. One step at a time. This is something out of a David Attenborough documentary this done.
It's interesting to see what type of boats are here as well.
Do you see yourself living on one of these?
In my mellow age, maybe. I do love paddleboarding.
I don't think you're paddleboarding around here.
No, you reckon?
Definitely not. Just walked over to this big red boat, and from a distance I thought I saw someone on it. I think I did. I don't think I'm seeing things. I'd love to speak to someone to try and get access to it. Give it a knock. I think she's. Did you hear? She's mimed and said, "Do you want to come in?"
Yeah.
No, I think she's going to get someone. Oh. Dan just opens the door. The light right now is. It turns out getting access wasn't that difficult. Dan just opened the door. Yeah, we walked in, obviously just being curious and nosy, spoke to a couple of staff members. They were a little bit perplexed. What are you doing? But we just played the nice card, you know, just being curious, checking out what's going on. It is a activity centre, long story short. They had guests on there. Right, it's funny how we were like, I wonder if anyone's on there. Yeah, there's about 35 people on there. And they had watercolour guests, like watercolour painters.
Watercolour painters.
So they must be there for the weekend.
Yeah, I think the tide comes in, they do stuff for schools and whatnot, so it's an interesting little centre.
That was fun. I think we got some unique images there, like really random, but nice.
Yeah, nice, yeah.
Something Dan and I were just talking about was how simple photography becomes when you're just following beautiful light, colours and shape, and the complexities of thinking about what you're doing just kind of disappear a little bit. It's beautiful down here this morning. The light is amazing, the sunrise is good, the blue sky, the boats, the cabins, everything's just so easy to take pictures of. I mean, like, street photography requires some thought and some focus and some effort in many ways, but this just doesn't. Dan and I have arrived at West Mersea, Mersea Island. Now what is it, like 8:30? Nearly 9?
20 to 9.
So I think the light's still going to be good for another couple of hours. It gets to a certain point where it's so high that it's like not as interesting as when the morning light cuts through quite low. So yeah, it should still be interesting for a little bit. Let's explore. One of the simple things about why this is so much fun, in many ways, comes down to just being a little bit nosy and exploring places that you wouldn't normally. I would never normally be in the middle of a boatyard like this, but the colours and the light, it's really cool.
I'm working on my page. be content with where I am, instead of reaching for the future. Or something that I
In this scenario, yeah. So I noticed the 2 red stop signs, and then the shapes of these buildings, the shadow of these chimneys, and then the telephone wires up above, all quite consistent, all quite neat and uniform in a way. A minute ago, a bird did just fly across here and create a lovely shadow in this white space on that building. That would have been nice. I'm getting serious Cape Cod vibes here. John Merriwett's Cape Light is my inspiration right now. The cloud in the distance there just coming through. The mix of white, blue, red, it's really nice. It's quite literally the opposite of what I was shooting yesterday. I was in the middle of all these Newcastle fans. They were getting ready for the Carabao Cup final. And it was just pure mayhem, just flares going off, beer going everywhere. But this is just actually really serene. Just stumbled across an oyster farm. Never seen one of them before. Don't really know what I'm looking at. But by the shells down here, we're assuming that's what's going on.